So guys, welcome back to the Sport Inspires podcast. Our podcast recorded in collaboration with the Mary Peters Trust. Mary, lovely to see you again. It's been a long time. Made possible by the Coca-Cola Thank You Fund. And today's episode, we are with the wonderful, Larne born and bred legend that is Claire Taggart, who is the 2022 World Champion of, help me out here, Boccia?
Correct.
Come on.
Wow, that is impressive.
That's
Claire.
impressive.
You've slagged me so far doing my research. Boccia, we've just about done it.
Everybody gets it wrong.
What does everyone
Even
say?
Me.
Bocci or Bocca or anything like that. Yeah, it's just
If
terrible.
I was looking at it, I would have said Boccia. But I watched one of those wee YouTube pronunciation videos,
Yeah.
and it hopefully...
Wow, you did do
I
your
was
research.
hoping that it would save me. So Claire is the 2022 World Champion of Boccia. She's the first person from Northern Ireland to ever compete at the Paralympics in the sport. And she's also the proud owner of 6 Tortoises. Claire, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
Are you a collector of turtles, usually?
Not turtles, tortoises.
Tortoises!
That's an error already.
That is a research blunder
Yeah.
right off the bat. Serves me out for being so cocky about Boccia.
I know,
Yeah.
but she has reptiles as well, I believe, have you?
Yeah, I used to have some lizards, but unfortunately they died awkward.
Oh,
But yeah, no, I have 6 tortoises, and they range in size from about this size to nearly a foot in length. So yeah,
So these are big operators.
yeah. My biggest tortoise is called Biffy, and he's nearly 6 kilograms. So
My goodness.
oh wow, because I have a friend who's one who's over 100 years old, like he inherited it.
yeah,
So you could have them for a while to feed.
they're going to be in my will and probably my kids' will
Oh my goodness.
if I have kids. So yeah,
Sorry, I'm too old to inherit one.
I don't know, at this rate you could probably outlive me.
yeah.
What's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise?
Turtles live in the water and out of the water, whereas tortoises live on the land.
Okay.
So
What's the difference between bowls and boccia?
Boccia's better, and bowls is played with. I think they're made of marble. They're like ovally shaped balls. But the irony is about this. Before I continue your question, my cousin plays bowls for Ireland, and I play boccia for Great Britain. So but there's no our parents weren't really interested in target ball sports. Our dads play golf, but yeah, this is all relatively new for both of us. But yeah, boccia is played with soft leather balls, whereas bowls is the oval shaped boring game.
Actually, I've played bowls and I've been quite good at it. I've won some prizes, but nobody knows about that.
Well, they do now.
But I'm delighted that lots of people know about you and your boccia.
Oh.
And because I was in Australia when you won your 2 World Championships in 2022, I was really embarrassed when I met you and you were able to tell me that you had had such great success. And I'm delighted for you, Claire. It's going from strength to strength. When you went off to Rio and you came back and I talked to you and I said to you, what was it like? And you said...
It was all right.
No, you were impressed by the number of people who were in their wheelchairs.
Oh yeah, no, so there was over 176 people competing at World Championships, which is for our sport. Typically, every competition is there would be maybe 100 people, but I think Lady Mary's more talking about the Paralympics and stuff like that. So it's an environment where you'll see all sorts of disabilities, people with amputations, people who use mobility aids and stuff like that, and it's a completely barrier-free environment. And in the idea of a Paralympics, it's like we live in our own little world there, and there's no discrimination, and there's everything is accessible at a Paralympics. So yeah, it's the things you'll see at Paralympics will never go away, and it's a real privilege to be at Paralympics, for example, because not many people get that experience, as you will know from your Olympic experience. Not very many people get to do that. So, yeah.
And it wasn't really until 1960 that really the Games became a sport with disability involved. And it's in more recent years, probably 2012, before it became fully integrated.
Yeah.
And the Channel 4 covered it, 24/7.
Yeah.
Whereas I remember the first time they showed half an hour of the Paralympics. And I went to Stoke Mandeville Hospital years ago where disability sports started. And, there would have been maybe 24 athletes there.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful that the sport has grown and the opportunities. And look how it's changed your life.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have seen anywhere around the world that I have without boccia and without Paralympic sport. And yeah, it's such a privilege and an opportunity that I never take for granted, I guess. So, yeah.
And when I spoke to you, having come back from Australia and learning about you winning these World Championships, I said, have you any more competition this year? And you rattled off half a dozen countries that you're visiting in 2023.
Yeah.
Where are you going next?
So I've just come back from Zagreb in Croatia. I'm going to Montreal on Saturday. And then I have a little bit of time at home before the European Championships in Rotterdam in August. Then I'm going to Sao Paulo in September and finishing off the year in Portugal. So yeah, doing a bit of travelling this year.
You're not staying at home very long?
No. Infrequently I'm home, but I'm away at least 1 week of every month. And if I'm away, then it means my dad's away as well, because he goes as my carer. So
wonderful,
awesome.
Wonderful.
Talk to me about the hallway during lockdown.
Oh, you have done your research?
It's the opposite of travelling around the world.
Yeah, so during lockdown, obviously, as someone with a severe physical disability, our entire squad, basically, we were seen as really clinically vulnerable. If we had got COVID or anything like that, there could have been really serious consequences or potentially even death. So our world-class programme, based over in the mainland, got really creative about what we were doing just to make sure that we were still playing boccia, because obviously the Paralympics was postponed until 2021, but we actually weren't training on courts until maybe March of that year.
Yikes.
So I was just throwing balls in the house. My dog called Rio, would lift the balls and run away and try and chew them. And yeah, it was just a really strange and stressful time, but we got through it, and then obviously the Paralympics happened. So
Mad. Did you call your dog Rio before you knew you were going to the Paralympics in Brazil, or?
Yes. So I picked her 2 weeks before we flew out in 2016, when she was just a little nugget thing, a little tiny creature. And I knew I wanted a border collie because they're so smart. But I didn't actually go to the homecoming events in Manchester and London because I was getting a dog and I'd rather have done that. So that's what I did instead.
Have you been celebrating with Lawn football team since Friday night?
No comment. Yes, I have.
I'm so happy for you because she was on her phone while we were celebrating various people winning awards the other night, and she's the Disability Access Officer for Lawn Football Club. And I had the privilege of attending one evening with Claire, although she was too busy to spend the evening with me. But I did get out onto the pitch and wish the team success. And I think you've done a wonderful job in opening up the club to people of all ages and abilities.
Yeah.
And I hope it'll spread to other clubs.
Yeah, I think the thing about Larne and me being brought on board, I think it's really important that someone with a lived experience of disability was brought in. And I think, obviously, we won the league.
Yay.
But we have so many great plans with the notoriety and stuff that comes with that, and really making our club as accessible and inclusive as possible for all people with disabilities, whether that be physical, intellectual, sensory, and I think that we just really want to push on and invite everybody to be at Larne, because as we say, it's for the town. It's not just about football. It's never just been about football, and it's about the town and the community, and getting the spirit behind the obviously the first team, men's and women's. But I think that there's so much good that can come from it. Yeah.
Did you approach them or did they approach you?
They approached me.
That's even more important, isn't it?
So they approached me in late 2018 to say that they needed someone as a disability access officer, but they didn't want it to just be a tick box exercise. They wanted someone who would have a lived experience of disability, who was not necessarily known within the community, because at the time I was playing boccia but not really getting anywhere. But someone who could really enforce change. I came on board, and now we're just kind of going from strength to strength. Obviously, when we eventually build the new stand, we have such great plans for it. But yeah, it's all so exciting at Larne at the minute.
And their recent success will give an opportunity to develop the club even more.
Yeah, we have such great plans that I'm so excited about them. And just for me, I'm not really that much into football. I'll admit it now. I'll go and watch the football and stuff like that, but I see the supporters who have physical disabilities or other disabilities who go to the football and how much enjoyment they get from it. And that's what drives me and the general manager, Niall, to work so hard and make Larne so accessible and inclusive. And yeah, I'm just really proud to be a part of it all. So yeah.
It's great. How did you get into your sport?
Ironically, the guy that I'm just talking about, Niall, he used to work as a sports development officer in the local council, and he set up a boccia club. And initially I went along and I found it quite boring. It wasn't a sport for me at the time. At the time I was also playing wheelchair rugby. I enjoyed the fast and furious nature of that, I guess. But my condition is progressive in that the muscles contract and get tighter and restrict my movement even more. So wheelchair rugby was never going to be a long-term prospect. And it was only when I kind of investigated boccia and seen saw the pathway of I could actually take this and go to Paralympics, for example. Some people say, where were you when London 2012 was happening? I didn't know that boccia was a sport. I didn't know that it existed. And 4 years later to be competing at a Paralympics was mental in my mind. But
I hadn't heard of dystonia. Is that how I pronounce it? Explain to me how it affects you.
It's a neurological condition which basically causes abnormal posturing and muscle spasm and joint contracture. I was diagnosed at 18 after a couple of years of stumbling, and then basically my feet started to turn in. But in my case, the condition has been quite progressive and not necessarily fast, quite sustained. Obviously, I was fully able-bodied until I was 16, 17. Started using a chair at 18, and basically my life kind of went in a different way than I probably would have envisioned it going. But I don't think even now, 10 years later, I'm now 28, I don't think I would have changed anything. So, yeah. It
has helped you mentally, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Being in the sport?
Well, sport has, it's given me a purpose. And I know, as somebody with a disability, travel is difficult. If you have a physical disability, if you have any disability, travel is difficult for able-bodied people, never mind people with a disability. And I don't enjoy travel, so flying, getting on planes, all that there, because it is it can be a stressful experience, because a lot of people don't actually know the process of someone who has an electric wheelchair, for example, getting on a plane, where that chair goes. So my chair goes in the hold with all the luggage. So you could be getting to... So, for example, we could fly to Brazil, that's just an example, and I could get there and my chair be broken. Oof. So there's a bad start to your trip already. We could get there and the chair be broken, and we get to the hotel and some of us can't actually fit in the bathroom, for example. So like once we get to our location and everything's fine, so bathroom's fine, chair is fine, then I can relax and enjoy my sport. But I don't think, and I would say that for some disabled people, especially in our sport, we wouldn't do the travel unless we had the sport that we enjoy so much. Like the travel is just so much. But yeah, we do it just because we love playing sport.
It's crazy the amount of resilience you need to even actually get to the arena before you even do the actual competition. That's mad. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
I've travelled with somebody that's not in an electric wheelchair but in a wheelchair, and that was a nightmare. And getting to London and having to get into a taxi out of her wheelchair onto where everybody puts their dirty feet to get in, to sit there, to be able to manipulate herself up onto the seat. And it took us hours to get to our destination, and then the disabled loos were not accessible for her in the building that we went to.
Where's the maddest place you've been to then? Because if you think like, okay, you mentioned like London there, like you've been to some pretty far away exotic places that I imagine, now maybe this is just me being high and mighty, like are not as set up as some other places around the world.
When we were, obviously Paralympics is different because they make everything as accessible as possible. But where I won my world title in December was the Paralympic venue again. And it worked perfectly, but we're just back from a competition in Zagreb where there was one bathroom, one shower, between 107 people who were wheelchair users.
Oh, wow.
So I'm pretty lucky in that I obviously travel with my dad. He can pick me up and set me. I have a little shower chair that goes on the back of my chair when we travel. He can set me on that. I was able to shower within the bathroom that of my hotel room. But for people who had maybe more complex disabilities or who couldn't sit on a standard stool, for example, one shower between over 100 people. And the way that it was worked was a rota, but I don't think you see that in a lot of other sports. Yeah, so.
What's it like to go into an environment like a Paralympics where, like, all of a sudden, a lot of the friction that you face in your everyday life has been thought about? Like, there's intentional design behind the chaos that is you operating through the world. Like, what's it like to go into an environment like that?
It is so settling. You are there to focus on your sport, and that is all you're there to focus on. Everything, well, 99% of things have been thought of, and if they're not thought of, you're consulted on them. So, like, I work with the British Paralympic Association. I'm a member of their athlete commission, and we're already talking about how we make, obviously Paris being next year, it's so close, that how do we make it as accessible as possible, so that when people like me and my teammates who have a severe physical disability, once we get there, we don't have to worry about beds, toilets, X, Y, Z. We can just think about how do we win medals, how do we get to the medal stages, and how do we enjoy the experience as well. And I think for us, there's a lot of credit also goes to our carers and our parents. So I couldn't do this without my parents. And my dad obviously travels with me, so it's a lot of stress for him as well. When we go somewhere and we arrive maybe midnight or whatever time we arrive at, and I can't even get in the door of a hotel room, we've got to move all the beds about so that we can actually get to the right side so that he can lift me to transfer me into bed. Or if somebody uses a hoist, are they lifting the bed up so that the hoist can go underneath it? Whereas at a Paralympics, 99% of things are thought of. And I think that for Paris, the BPA have been like really forthcoming and stuff like that. I'm saying this is an opportunity we don't want to miss, being so close. How can we make it as accessible as possible and an enjoyable experience for you and your carer?
Yeah.
I remember you saying to me after Rio that it was more normal to be out in the arena or in the around the stadium because everybody was in a wheelchair. We don't think about that because we only meet people occasionally in a wheelchair. But you know, this girl has the best sense of humour you ever came across.
Well, she's wicked, I know that for sure.
She spoke at our evening, it was luncheon one day, and the MC said to her, I'm going to employ you next time as a comedian. And she said...
but unfortunately I can't do stand-up. So.
I love that quote.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal.
And the problem was that he wasn't sure if I was being sarcastic or serious because I had such a deadpan face about it. But yeah, no, that is one of my favourite lines.
I know, she's wonderful.
Just before we move on, you've talked about what it's like to come into that environment. What's it then like to come out of that environment? Because like listening to things that you've told me, Mary, and like listening to things about other Olympians, it's like that Olympic Village is like its own little kind of weird and wonderful bubble and world. And everyone gets yanked out of that and goes back to working in the gym as you were, back to Belfast or back to their jobs or whatever. What was that like for you with that extra layer of, oh, now I'm going back to a world where not everything is thought of again?
It's an interesting concept. So when we came back from Japan, if I use Japan and the COVID times as a good example, when we came back, we got bussed. We landed into Heathrow, and I'd driven from Belfast, got the Belfast Liverpool ferry, and I need a straw anyway, so.
Let me move it back. I was just sitting there and I was like, I don't know if that's close enough, but you need a straw.
No, I'm also going to end up wearing it if I try and drink it. So yeah, I've got a drink anyway. Don't panic. Look at him; he's going all red.
It's the lights. If you need your drink, let us know.
No, it's fine. We came back from Japan and we were in Liverpool, waiting for the ferry. Just my dad and I. And when we'd been in Japan, everything was masks and not like, apart from in your bedroom, you had to wear a mask. And we came back and it was the time during COVID where most of the things had been relaxed, and it was like, Dad and I remember being in Liverpool city centre and it being like a completely different universe. And for me, being more anxious, am I going to get COVID? But at this point, it's not that it didn't matter, it's that the competition had finished. And I hadn't really realised that yet. The different utopia of that. But yeah, I'm really lucky. I live in a little adapted bungalow in Larne, so my accessibility needs are really well met. So yeah, when we come home, I'm delighted to have that. But yeah, it can be stressful.
No place like home.
In your home, you have a business as well.
Yes.
Nifty Notebooks, I think.
Yes,
that's a
thanks for
lovely
the plug. Thanks for the plug.
Shout out Etsy link in the bio, in the description of this episode. Click it, check it out.
Yeah, so it was actually during COVID. I like to draw, and my parents were like, would you just do something with this? And I actually collect notebooks and pens and stationery. I'm a bit of a stationery addict, if I do say so myself. And basically, my parents were like, right, if you don't do something with this, we're going to crack up. So I started my own little business, and basically I sell notebooks and notepads and badges and pins and stickers. But yeah, there's some boccia related stuff, but most of it's just drawings that I've thought of.
Brilliant idea.
Awesome. Really cool.
She said she would have brought me a notebook if she'd realised.
Well, I wanted to ask you, how do you rate Mary's notebook here, like out of 10? So you see here.
Well,
I mean, it's a bit dirty. And
it's well travelled, Claire.
It's used.
And it is
it's
used.
Functional.
Look.
I know, but like, can you read the handwriting? Like, I'm a massive handwriting person.
I can read my own.
Her whole life.
I know, but can you read it?
Yeah, of course. Says Claire has an attitude problem.
Actually, I wrote at the top, Claire Taggart, GB, Larne, Dystonia,
Boccia. 95. What are you?
Wow, great year.
What are you?
And I was surprised when I spoke to you recently that you were 28, because you certainly don't look it.
I have a baby face.
But I've known you for a while, and I've got to know you through the Mary Peters Trust, and we supported you in your early days. How valuable was that to you?
When I was a little baby, and well, I wasn't a baby, I was 18.
Where my mind went to there, I was like, hang on a second, what?
No. When this little baby, when this little baby face was even younger, I got my Mary Peters Trust bursary, and it actually bought me my first ever set of boccia balls. Before that, I'd been loaning some from Disability Sport Northern Ireland.
Wow.
So I was able to get my first ever set thanks to the Mary Peters Trust and this lovely lady, and the invaluable work that she does for young athletes, both able-bodied and disabled, who want to achieve the best in their sport.
Talk to me about money in general in boccia. Like, how's it all funded? If you win a competition, do you win money? Like, tell me all that sort of stuff.
So nosy.
You came to this podcast. There was going to be questions.
No, we are a tiny sport. We are national lottery funded, so we're all so grateful for that. But yeah, there's no money changes hands if you win a competition or anything like that.
So all the flights, all the hotels
is all covered by national lottery funding.
That's class.
So we're really lucky in that. And previously, before I joined the sport, before it became a national lottery funded sport, people who wanted to play internationally would have had to do a bit of fundraising and stuff like that. But I'm really lucky, and our squad is really lucky that we have a world-class programme with 2 full-time coaches and lots of support staff. But yeah.
Your programme, your coach was over recently.
Yes.
And I didn't get to meet him, but I was inspired that he was so helpful to you. And,
Yeah.
And I met another wheelchair boccia man the other night. And you have some backup and support. How valuable is that to you in your continuing programme?
My coach Glenn is, I don't like to say it because he'll love this, but like he has changed my perspective of boccia. Like I didn't really, I went through a period of not enjoying it, and he has just a totally different view on things. And
what's his name?
Glen, as in like the little tiny town or village outside of Larne.
Yes.
He got very excited when he came over once, and he had to go and get his picture taken by the sign of Glen.
That's very good.
So yeah, he's obviously he's based in Coventry. That's where he lives. But he'd be over at least once a month, and then I'd see him at training camps and stuff like that. But he's just so dedicated and committed to not only me but everybody else he coaches.
How many are there in your group?
In our coaching group,
he
has. There's 6 of us, I would say. 7 maybe. 7. But within our world-class programme squad, there's 12, 13 maybe. So, yeah.
You know the way you release the ball down is it a tube or what?
Oh, no, that's a different classification.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry.
I'm a thrower. So.
Oh, you're a thrower.
Yes.
Okay.
I actually wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
There are different classifications, and isn't there also like individual, and then you can play as a team as well?
Yeah, so I'm a BC2, so it basically means I compete in the classification of people who have things like cerebral palsy, and I compete in that classification because my presentation and my physical disability fits in within that classification.
But you were in a different classification. Why did they change you?
Another nation not so far away from here may have wrongly classified me.
Iceland.
Replace one of those letters and have regretted it ever since. But yeah, no, I was in a different classification for that.
Was it an advantage being moved or disadvantage?
I didn't know that it was an advantage. I didn't know I was in the wrong classification until I came under GB, and they were like, "You're in the wrong place. There's a reason why you're getting beat 20-0 and nowhere near scoring a point." And yeah, it kind of just changed everything.
You said that Glenn totally changed your perspective on boccia.
Yeah.
Like, totally changed my perspective on it, or like somebody listening.
Okay.
So in my head right now, it's bowls.
Yeah.
How do you make it better than bowls?
Well, it already is. So that's a good question. Boccia is a game of nail-bite intention where centimetres and millimetres is what changes a point to 2 to 3. The concept of the game, it's probably easier if I explain it like that. In bowls, someone will play the jack to a set length. In boccia, the court size is a badminton court size. So you can play that anywhere within that badminton court.
I didn't know that.
And you can then use your own advantage. So if you're better at the long shots or if you're better at the short shots, you use that to your own advantage. Boccia, in comparison to bowls, instead of it being turnabout, in boccia, so it's red and blue balls, and one colour. So if the red, this is so confusing, if the red person plays the jack first, they will play their first ball, and the blue will then play until they have either got in control of the jack, so closer than the red, or they have played out of balls. So there's no turnabout in boccia, and that's why it may seem a bit confusing online, or if you're watching it on the TV, if someone has played 6 balls and they're still not closer.
Also makes it faster paced though.
Yeah.
Like a wee bit more intense, I think.
Yeah, so our games are all timed as well. So like
Ooh.
my classification, I have 4 minutes individually to play 6 balls. Now that may mean going out and having a look at what's actually in front of me, because my spatial awareness, and a lot of people with CP, our spatial awareness is terrible. But yet they allow me to drive a car. And not just a car, a large van.
Yes.
But my spatial awareness of tiny little things is challenging. So going out to have a look at what's actually happening on the court, or coming back and having to make a decision. In our sport, one wrong shot or one wrong decision can completely change an end, and therefore whether you win or lose. And that's what I think I love about it. It's like, I often compare it to chess, because you're often thinking at least two moves ahead of what you're actually doing in that moment. And I think that's the nail-biting element of it that I just love, and that everybody across the world loves.
So how many 4 minutes happen?
So there's 4 ends individually, right. And I'll have 4 minutes, and my opponent will have 4 minutes to make their decisions and play the balls. But that's in my classification. In every other classification, it changes the amount of time. So my boyfriend Scott, who was previously a BC3, he's just retired. He used a ramp and a head pointer, and his dad was his assistant. So his back would face the court, but all the instructions would come from Scott, because Scott can't lift his hand, can't move pretty much at all. And he would instruct his dad where to move the ramp, where to put the head pointer, which ball to use, and stuff like that. But his dad never turns around to see what's actually happening. So it's all from Scott. So if Scott's roaring and he's happy about a shot, his dad has no idea. Until you watch it back, for example, if it's being live streamed and stuff like that. But yeah, no, the different classifications is, I guess, sometimes hard for people to understand, but they've made some really good infographics and stuff online.
So how many groups of classifications are there?
So there's 4 on a Paralympic level. So there's BC1s, so who are also throwers. They have cerebral palsy or like me, but BC1s have an assistant because they need more help with preparing the ball or throwing the ball. BC2s like me, we don't have an assistant on court with us, and we can just throw the ball. BC3s use a ramp and then release it using a hand or a head pointer. And BC4s, those guys are people with muscular dystrophy or spinal cord injury. So there's a vast breadth of people who can play our sport.
Yeah, so that's really, really, really helpful, and you've shared a lot of the tactical side. I'm going to go back. How did Glyn energize you about the sport? What was it about the sport that really took a hold of you? Because there's a difference between me getting into chess over lockdown after watching Queen's Gambit.
Did you?
Yes. Obsessively. And then deciding, do you know what, actually, I'm going to make this a major part of my life.
So
I did, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And do you play chess now?
I play every Tuesday night with my friend Nathan. That's the height of it.
Oh, okay.
He also plays like whenever some days against me and all that. And of course, he goes a little bit lighter because once again, this man completely sweated out. Just knocked out. I cannot tell you like how much he sweated it out and everything. But yeah, basically, yeah.
He's just sad because I beat him.
I used to play with my brother when I was wee.
Did you play chess?
Yeah.
I need to get you in someday. We can do a wee bit of chess.
Oh, I haven't played for a long, long time.
That's okay.
Maybe 50, 60,
I can't,
70 years.
I can't throw a shot put, so it's all good.
But I did love it because it was always a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, and he was bigger than me and older than me, so I always wanted to beat him, so I could
I actually
beat him on the
shared
chess.
sorry for hijacking your interview here.
Oh, no,
I
that's
actually
fine.
shared your anecdote with somebody on the show the other day.
Oh.
We were interviewing a woman called Bernadette Haggins, and she's class.
I know her.
Do you know her?
She worked for the football.
Yeah.
She lost her leg to cancer, didn't she?
Yeah, she's got one leg. You've got to meet this woman. She's incredible. She's totally up your street. But she's super competitive. And when I was interviewing her and asking her about her family and stuff, and she told me that she had brothers, and I said, wait to hear Mary Peters' theory about brothers. And she was like, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Need to make that connection.
I
Anyway,
have no siblings, so I know nothing about brothers.
what was it about the sport that grabbed you?
So Glenn is actually only my coach of 18 months, 2 years now. So I've just changed coaches. And I guess the thing that grabbed me about this sport was seeing it at an international level. And previously when I'd seen it within Northern Ireland and at a grassroots level, there would have been maybe a metre or 50 centimetres between shots. Whereas at the international level, they have feeler gauges out. Things are so tight. And I think the thing that actually grabbed me about this sport was that regardless of your disability, like you could be able to move one finger, but you would still rid.
You've got 2 minutes. You better hurry up. Apologies. That was my I think like wake my little girl up from her nap alarm from the weekend. The precision. They've got these readers out.
Yeah, so they've got feeler gauges and stuff if balls are touching on top of each other and stuff like that. And the thing that actually grabbed me about this sport when I saw it at an international level was that if you can move one finger or you can just move your head, you can play at the highest level possible. Like, there is nothing stopping you from being a Paralympic champion, regardless of your lack of movement, or if you're like someone with cerebral palsy who has too much movement, there is nothing stopping you within this sport.
But you have to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to be a wheelchair user
Yeah.
to play this sport at the highest level. And that doesn't mean not necessarily does that mean that you can't play boccia. It just means that you can't play it at the Paralympic level.
Some sports, and it disappoints me, put able-bodied people in wheelchairs to make up a team. Is that possible in boccia?
Not at the international level.
No.
So I think boccia at a grassroots level is really important for people who have perhaps a learning disability, and I think it's a really good team building and enjoyable social thing. But I think that there is an important distinction between those who have a severe physical disability and compete at Paralympics compared to the grassroots level of it, and I think it's really important that there is that. I think mainstream attitudes about people who have a physical disability are changing, and I think it's really important to mention that. I'll give you one example of a not horrific story, but whenever I was first diagnosed, and the first social worker who came out to the house, and she said, Claire, have you thought about what day centre you'd like to go to? And my mum, who is a lovely woman, but she doesn't mince her words, a little bit like me.
It's all becoming clear.
She didn't say anything. She just got up, she tutted, and she went and had a cigarette in the kitchen. And I said no, I wouldn't be attending a day centre. Those are wonderful places for people who need them, but that I would either be going to uni or I would be going back to college to finish my course. and then I would work out what I was going to do. And this woman, this social worker, couldn't understand why I wasn't interested in that. And I think that there is sometimes, as a wheelchair user and someone with a severe physical disability, there's this idea that just because I'm a wheelchair user doesn't mean that I can't speak for myself or that I'm not all there. I am more than all there.
Yeah.
We know.
I think it also speaks to this. This happens in every single area of life. Something really difficult happens to you, and the system will almost present an option where it's like, it's okay, you can finish now.
Yeah.
You can sit down, you can retire, you can do whatever. And actually that was not the path that you chose, and I have a lot of respect for you for choosing that path.
I'm such an inspiration.
You're such an influencer.
No, I'm such an inspiration, and I hate that. See, when people say, you're such an inspiration,
But
that is
you
not...
are.
I never said you were an inspiration, let me be clear.
That is something I get a lot. You're such an inspiration. And the thing about inspiration for disabled people is we don't want to be an inspiration for walking our dog, for going to Tesco and doing my shop. No. I want to be an inspiration, if I must say it, for being an international sportswoman.
Yeah.
And an achiever.
An achiever.
But I'm inspired by your story because you didn't sit back and allow 10 years of depression to ruin your life. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, not outwardly.
But that's a very real possibility for anyone who experiences a hard time.
Yeah, and the world is not meant for disabled people.
Sure.
The world is not accessible for disabled people. Like, one of the biggest gripes that I have at the minute, and my parents are sick so and tired of me rhyming on about it, is that I seen this company who have built a wheelchair that can climb stairs.
Oh, gosh.
What's the point? Just build more ramps. Make more ramps. There's no need for stairs, like stair climbing wheelchairs. Build more ramps. We're not disabled by our actual disability. We're disabled by the world and the environment that we live in.
Wow.
You're absolutely right.
Such an inspiration.
Yes.
That was a really inspirational moment. Can I just tell you that?
Claire,
I'm about to vomit.
Get her a bucket.
It actually was. That was a bar there. That was a that was a good sentence.
Well,
go ahead.
Claire, you've already been selected for Tokyo. So many international athletes are waiting for that call or that letter that'll come. How comfortable does that make you feel that you know that you're going?
You mean Paris?
Paris, what did I say? Tokyo. Sorry, I meant Paris.
It's fine.
Sorry. I went to Tokyo in 1964 and it comes into my head more easily than Paris because I never competed there. But I'm just so thrilled for you that you can comfortably train and go to all these other competitions during the year to know that you're on your way to Paris. And I'm hoping that the world champion can be Olympic champion.
Paralympic.
I think of you as an Olympian.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'd like to try and get that title, the Paralympic champion. But like you say, there's no guarantees with anything in life, never mind sport. And you always need that little bit of luck on the day. But I don't really talk about my sporting stuff at all. The minute you started waffling on about world champion, I started saying, shh, I'm just a little girl. Well, not a little girl, I'm a woman from Larne, in my mind, and that's all I ever want to be.
But there's so much out there for you. Look, I was a little girl from Liverpool that came to live in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And the opportunities that my success in sport gave me are unbelievable. And I know that they're already waiting for you because you have a great brain and we have talked about inspiration, but you will inspire a whole new generation of young people to follow in your... I was going to say footsteps.
Mary Peters, how dare you? Claire is just so offended right now.
In your wheelchair, no. She knew that I hesitated because I didn't know.
Well, you knew I was going to snap at you if you said footsteps. So, yeah.
And to piggyback off the back of that too, not every little girl from Larne puts the work that you've put in either.
No.
So don't discredit yourself either.
And you've had support and opportunity. And there are so many young people out there who have talent but don't get the opportunity, or are offered the opportunity and don't take it.
Yeah.
And we punch above our weight in Northern Ireland and in all sports. And I know that, that your joy in seeing Larne Football Club doing so well was as important to you as your own success, because you're associated with it. And I get so much pleasure out of seeing the success of so many of our young people who are travelling the world representing us and are the future of this country, Claire.
But the thing about it is, we would be nowhere without people like you and the Mary Peters Trust. Like, I would never have got my first set of balls without the Mary Peters Trust, and therefore I would never have gone to compete at my first GB Championships in Wigan and then been talent spotted. So,
but that's why it's so important to me to make sure that so many people
and
don't
we have
lose that opportunity.
I am based gym and physio at the Sports Institute, and everyone knows Lady Mary Peters, and everybody does media for Lady Mary Peters.
Mary P.
Mary P, as you're more commonly known. But we do it because you mean so much to us, and you've supported us in our journey. Even in a tiny little sport like boccia, you still gave me a bursary, which enabled me to start this journey. So
it's great.
And it's given me great friendship, because I just love knowing you. And I've been to the track this morning, and a lady gave me a cheque for the trust for £25,000.
Oh, Mary, congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I was in tears. She was shaking because it was a memory of her daughter who had died of a brain tumour. But she wanted, because of her interest in netball in particular, that she wanted to help some people for the future, but she didn't specify that it went to any particular sport. So a few weeks ago we were able to give 82,000 out to a group of young people. And how could you have a better day than knowing that?
100%. Going to go to Rosca here. Rosca's going to ask the final question.
All right.
And then, Mary, would you maybe like to talk a little bit about the 200 Club just at the very end?
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah.
All right. So, if you could go back in a time machine, or you're in front of an audience of young people wanting to get their life ahead of themselves, wanting to know what they want to do with their life, what kind of advice would you give?
He's the big guns.
maybe he should be sitting in your
Mate,
chair.
he's training. Someday.
He won't allow you because he still wants more screen time.
Don't worry, we're getting a camera for you. I was chatting to somebody the other day about it.
Where is it? I don't see it yet. Where is it?
Okay, so advice for young people.
Or even like advice you give to a younger version of yourself.
Listen to your parents. Be kind to yourself as well as others. And I guess don't be afraid to say no to things that you don't want to do. If they're not going to be something that you think are good for you, or if you are presented with an opportunity and told you like this is really important for your future or anything like that, but you just don't feel it's right, don't feel bad about saying no to things. And I guess that's like where I'm at the minute. I'm getting better at saying no to things that, not necessarily that I don't want to do, but things that aren't helpful for my sporting journey, and not feeling selfish about that, I guess, and prioritising you, I guess.
Great advice.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that, because once again, I personally myself, like, I struggle to say no to certain things. Like, for example,
I'm
I
a
didn't
people
say
pleaser.
no. For example, I didn't say no to Matthew whenever he offered me the job, so said something there. But yeah, I get what you mean, and it is really difficult to say no to people, because, like, if you're generally, because nice people, they don't want to be, overly nice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's, it's difficult to say no.
It's real discipline, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, just by
Claire,
showing that you
I have to tell you, I'm still learning to say no.
I'm such a people pleaser, and it's one of the biggest detriments I have in life is that if somebody says, can you come and do this, or can you come and speak at this thing, I hate speaking in front of people, but I'll do it because I feel indebted to them. Or, for example, like they'll have they'll have been kind to me at some point, and I'm thinking, I don't really like speaking in front of people, but I'll still do it. My parents are like my biggest supporters in the world, so shout out to them for the person I've become today.
Awesome. Mary, what's a 200 Club?
Oh, it's an easy way to help support the Mary Peters Trust by paying
Go on, Catherine, jump in.
£5 a month.
You came in clutch there, Catherine.
The price of a cup of coffee.
That's right. Really expensive latte
And
from the
you
merchant.
have an opportunity every month to win £350. And I know people who've won 3 or 4 times. And I would just encourage anybody who likes sport to encourage, because by helping young people develop their skills, they're representing us in the best possible way, but they're also developing their own skills and abilities. So if you haven't signed up already, we're looking for more people to sign up. £5 a month is for nothing.
Awesome. And alongside Claire's Etsy link, we'll put a link to the 200 Club as well. Claire, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate your time.
Thanks, I've had a terrible time.
Mary, lovely to see you
Thank
as
you,
always.
you too, and lovely to share the afternoon with Claire.
That's a wrap. Boom, boom.
Yay.